They're on fire. Whoever wins the cup this year is usually the first time for either city.
Oh, it will be, yeah.
It could be Vegas or it could be Denver.
Vegas, that's the old Bruins coach too.
Oh yeah.
Okay, you're good to go.
We're good to go. Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the board meeting for this evening. We'll call the meeting to order, and I think we have a quorum. We don't have any visitors tonight.
Sue, and we have Darren and Linda.
Yep. Welcome, folks. If you have questions anytime during the meeting, please feel free to ask them. And if you have any comments, feel free. We like hearing from everyone here around the table. Before we go any further, I'd like to have, if there's any conflict of interest declaration to be made this evening. Whether you guys are boring or what, but no, not the conflict. That's good. Thank you. Adoption of the agenda. You've all had a chance to review the agenda. If there are no questions or comments, we have someone move that they be adopted as presented. Thank you. Seconder. Harvey, thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Thank you very much. You've all had a chance to review the minutes of April 27th, 2023. If there are no questions or comments on those minutes, if I could have someone move that those minutes be adopted as presented. Harvey, thank you. A seconder. Okay, thanks, Ben. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Business arising from previous meetings. Strategic plan update. Pulse.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Many of you have been involved with some of the planning meetings and things that we've had so far. Everything is on track and on schedule. We're following the plan and we should be ready, but it won't be. I had a talk with our consultant, our lead consultant, and we will have the draft version of the strategic plan ready on time. It won't be a completed thing until a little bit after July 1st, but good enough for the province, and it'll be enough that should be ready to be presented to the board for approval at our June meeting. So we've had some really good in-depth meetings, and they've been long ones, but I think a lot of good stuff has come out of it. Not just about generating the plan itself, but I think there's been a lot of really good discussions around, who we are and what we do, and positioning, a little more understanding too. So I think there's been more benefits than just creating the plan thus far. And that's all I really have, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Any questions or comments for Halls? Okay. Mileage and expense rates. As we know, the last time we met, the provincial mileage rates and meal rates had gone up. We reviewed those numbers. The mileage rates had gone up from 50 to 57 cents a kilometer. And so we wanted to make a motion during the evening or this evening's meeting to adopt those current mileage and expense rates to match the new provincial government rate. Any additional comments or questions on that one?
I move that we adopt the provincial rates and mileage and expense rates.
Okay. Denny, a second. Thank you very much. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Covered. Anything new on the bylaw update?
There is. So just within the last couple of days, I finally received what the provincial consultant has done. He took all the bylaws from all of the commissions and put together to make sure they all conform with the new Regional Service Delivery Act and the new regulation. However, what he sent was a generic one for everybody. So it isn't, he didn't take our bylaws and fix them. It was more like, here's the generic, and this really kind of wasn't what we were expecting. And it actually isn't even complete because there's no French version. However, we don't have a requirement for a French version here, so that's okay. So my intention there is to take, because he's got some good things in there, but it's not going to match what we need. So I'm going to kind of cut and paste the good parts into our bylaws and match those up over the next few days. And I will get them moved to the board, and we can either adopt or at least accept for review those bylaws at the June meeting.
Question on that. Does that include the committee makeups too?
Yes.
Okay. Good.
Yes. Yeah, and we've had some clarification around the committee makeup. Like you said, we had discussed the requirement for having a board member as chair of each committee, but we're just to confirm, we're going to drop that, right? That's
Yes,
not a
that was, yeah, I think that was agreed to at our last meeting.
right.
Yeah.
Okay,
But we would have board representation on each.
that's right.
Yeah. Yeah. I must say, Raymond, on mine, on community development. I don't have a lot of expertise in community development, so I sat down with him right off the bat and I said, I may be the chair. You're gonna be the judge.
He's the legs of the chair.
Yeah. So he does a great job with it. I agree with just about everything he says. So.
I understand the problems with the bylaws, because when we took over Eastern Charlotte, they gave us a procedural bylaw, and basically it was generic, and because Blacks Harbor had one, St. George had one, they made up one of their own and handed it to us. We couldn't start with that until we had that bylaw.
Yeah,
Yeah, so,
yeah.
so I understand fully what you mean.
But this wasn't what we all thought, like all the CEOs, our group. We thought, our understanding was that he was going to take our bylaws and then kind of tweak them and fix them and make sure they were in compliance.
Yeah.
For each one, but that wasn't the case. And he came back, he took them all, kind of came up with this generic one. But it's not going to work as is for us at all.
Linda did mention to me that if you did want any help on her end, that she would be willing to
Awesome,
reach out to her, and she's done them, so
great.
she offered one, maybe just.
Thanks, Linda.
Hmm.
Okay, any other questions, comments on the bylaw update? Okay, we're going to Bill 45 discussion and action.
Okay, so I just put that down. I don't have anything on it other than what I've sent you, and I know Mayor McCaffrey, you sent me that which I sent out to the rest of the board right away as well. I know there's been a lot of discussion around the province on it. I know that, but I didn't know. I just wanted to put it on the agenda here in case there was anything else you wanted us to do as a group, or any more discussion on it that you wanted to go forward with, or.
I know UMND sent everything, they're totally against it.
We, at Funny Shores, we sent a letter, right? I think I sent you guys all the letters, so that was the letter we took it to council, and they were fine with it too. We, I think, tweaked it a bit, but we sent it right directly to the minister, asking for, ours had 15 points that we wanted changed.
Yeah.
So.
There were some of the things that when I was reading through it, I didn't go through it in great detail like you guys did, but I did read the whole thing. There was a couple of things when I first read it, it kind of bothered me a little bit. Was about how the province is going to be, I guess, looking after municipalities that fail, RSCs that potentially fail. And I know in the past we've had communities where their leadership did fail. And I don't know whether there was anything in the books prior to that where the provincial government or local government could come in and provide supervision for that community or whatever. Same thing happened with the RSCs, and we had an issue here when this RSC first started. That when it was taken to ELG said, hey, this is your baby. You know, they kind of washed their hands of it. And so I guess this is probably an attempt to try and lay down some ground rules as to when the province may intervene with issues that are going on within a community or within an RSC. So from when I looked at it from that perspective, I thought, well, yeah, maybe they do need to have something like that in place so that legally they can move forward and come in and assist a community or an RSC if they start having problems. It does look rather draconian when you first look at it. There was another aspect of that too that I looked at, and that was one of the things that you brought up, Denny, and I'm still not happy with that, the way it's coming down. And that is having a committee that overrides any complaints that come in against the community. And then the community ends up paying for whatever investigation takes place. And where I saw, you know, I'm not a devious fellow, but when I look at stuff like that, I always look to say, how can that be abused by people in the position of authority? And if I was not happy with you as a mayor, and I wanted to cause you difficulty, all I could do is, as a political person or what, something else, all I'd have to do is go to one of my minions and say, I think these guys are ripping off the budget and they're doing this and they're doing that, and I want you to do an investigation. Well, as soon as they start doing an investigation, the credibility of that council has now been called into question. And has it been done with good intent in mind, or was it done as a means of trying to get back at you for some reason? And that kind of bothered me on that one. Bonnie, you have your hand up.
Oh, hi, Bonnie.
Sorry, I was a couple minutes late. I'll be the first to admit I've not read all of the bill. I've skimmed through it. I've read some of the press and I've read some of the information that has been circulated. And I'm certainly not an expert when it comes to bills, regulations, those sorts of things. But is there an opportunity to have someone come from ELG to talk to us about what the intent is and what the implications are, like, so that, like, are we interpreting this the right way? Because I tend to agree with you, Ken. Like, I think that there probably is a need to have some sort of something if a village, if a municipality is failing, to give the provincial government the authority to step in. Not that they probably couldn't if it came down to it anyway. But how do they see this going forward? Like, what sort of parameters, what sort of policy is going to be put around it? Because that's really where the devil is going to be, is in the details. How is this going to work? And I think it's really hard to sort of form an informed opinion without having some of that background information. So I guess long and short is there an opportunity to have someone come and talk to us before the third reading of the bill, so we have a better understanding of what the actual intent is and what the implications are, both at the RSC level and again at the municipality level?
I would toss that question back to Hollis. Because now I'm thinking it should be a combined request from all the RSC CEOs.
I don't know if we're going to make it before the third reading, but if that hasn't already happened, I haven't looked at the schedule at where it is. But no, I think it's a great idea. They're well aware of the concerns around the province on this. It's been, a lot of people have been very vocal about it, but I think you're onto something, Bonnie, and they would do well to speak directly to it, to municipalities, I think. So I can take that forward to my group, and I can take that forward to ELG as a, if you want me to.
Yeah. Sorry.
No,
Yeah.
sorry, no, let's wait my turn.
Yeah.
So I had some of your thoughts as well, Ken, on the, because they do need teeth when they need them to, I mean, we're coming from a group that's actually been working well over the years, so it's hard to picture something that's not working well. So I agree, they probably do need something in writing so they can take action where it's bad. But I don't want us all as an RSC and a municipality working hard, going through all the painstaking work we have to go through to get something in place, and they don't like what we put in place that was built by democracy.
Yeah.
And then just rip it apart because they didn't like how we built it. Because they've given us the power to do it. They gotta let us do it. I mean, it's built this way. And Elwyn, back to your back in the past, the province didn't recognize and support regional service commissions then. Right. I mean, we had ministers that were part of government that didn't care what we're doing. I remember them coming, not even wanting to come. But now it's a different flavor now. That's kind of changed there. So if they can put rules in place and when they can take action, like something that can guide them to say you can't do something for a certain value or something where they shouldn't get involved, be a little better taken by me.
So for us, I agree with oversight, and I agree with everybody said of having that in place. I think that's great. But if they're not going to change it in writing and only change it by what they say, then it's not going to help. Because if you read it, no matter who reads it or how you read it, from what you read, it's pretty, whether it's draconian or it's not oversight, it's control. And it takes away from everything prior to myself getting here in January. It takes that all away. And it's not only that, it's what scares me the most is what you just said of what we pointed out in our letter is anybody. I can sit here tonight and I don't like the way you're saying things or doing things. I can file a complaint and you're paying the bill. That to me just doesn't make sense. That's not oversight. And at some point, because so many people were upset right up until this year with this whole this is just going to be more kindling on the fire. I believe that's the way we looked at it, was that you're going to have a lot of these people outside of the thing that are just going to file complaints just because, and as mayor or councillors, I'm not saying that we should be going off the wall, but you should have that right to stand up and defend what you're doing without having that fear of the government or Minister Lynn or whoever in this commission to come in and silence it. To me, that just seems, I didn't get into it for that. I get into it to be outspoken for my community.
I just want to kind of react. I see you going to, I want to react that way, if I could.
Yeah.
So I agree. That's why I'm saying there should be a I don't know if it's a value. Let's say there is a mayor that did something out of line once. Something just wasn't quite right. Should it be just once they can come in and do all this, or should it be evaluate what that is and then take action accordingly? Like there's got to be, I don't know what it is. Yeah, it's got to measure out.
Did he actually break the law?
Yeah,
Procedure bylaw.
There's got to be something like,
and that's what we
it's
asked.
like an employee, like a CEO, like you evaluate them every year and check their progress and you score them, and the same thing could be for us.
Yeah.
I don't know, but you just don't want to get painted bad with one paintbrush, and then all of a sudden you're bad forever, and your council's a mess.
And we've asked that to the minister in the letter, is that why don't you put in that in place, and whoever made the complaint, if it finds out that it is a legitimate complaint, the investigation is in their favor, then the municipality pays the bill. You're in the wrong, then you can pay the bill. But if you're found not in the wrong, and Jimmy across the street files a complaint, then Jimmy should be paying for the investigation, whether it's because it could be one day investigation at $100, or it could be a whole year investigation of $10,000, $15,000, $20,000. And I just don't think that's fair for.
They should have some skin in the game. If they're going to put something against you, they got to make sure it's right. But anyways,
Does this give the minister the right to walk in and say change the rezoning or change our bylaw that you just put in place? Does that give him the powers?
According to that, yes.
So it's not rezoning in that. So what reason would a minister would want that kind of power to come in and change rezoning other than political interference?
Right.
Other than political,
Yeah.
because the minister, Alain, in Moncton, got involved in a situation in Moncton that he wanted a rezoning in Moncton. He got involved and sent a letter to the city of Moncton saying he was all for it, and he put a lot of pressure on the city of Moncton to do that. Is this another step in that direction? I'm open to it because I can do it in public, because he actually did try to do it.
Right.
the minister is a political figure as well. Like,
Absolutely.
he's no different than us around this table.
Yeah.
That's working through a board. So I don't understand how they could just, yeah, I mean, let's say, I'll pick on myself. Let's say the mayor and council supported me and I allowed zoning changes that are just crazy. Let's say we, instead of allowing people to have 3 hens, we allow them to have 100. I mean, at every house, and that's just driving everyone nuts. Is that something, I mean, that I can see could be something that needs to be controlled. And I'm just totally exaggerating here, but there's got to be some
Well,
value.
But we have a process in our level. We have to go through the public and get their, and so we're political figures. We have to listen to them before rezoning. We have to listen to the public.
I understand, we build everything on
We have a-
democracy.
So we do the whole
Yeah.
democracy, then have a minister come in because of political interference and say, no, I have a friend in St. Andrews or Black Traver, and I'm not gonna let that happen. And that can happen.
He's taking a lot from the municipalities, and he's putting it on the commission and allowing the commission, like it's a really broad stroke of what he's doing to say you can do.
This is like amalgamation. Some of us didn't want amalgamation, but guess what?
Just as a point of clarification, the minister has the ability to change a bylaw or zoning request now, and always has in the Community Planning Act. It actually already exists. This commission would be there to make that happen, but that's actually not new.
Yeah, I even think they have to sign off on ones we do.
They do.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
they do.
true. So, yeah,
They do.
yeah.
But this is if you think of our TIPA requests, if any of you have ever gone through that, it's the kind of the same sort of, like, you can have nuisance we've had nuisance RTIPA requests. Which can be a real pain. I've had them squashed. I've had one nuisance one that was just going to take all the staff like 3 days to do this. And so I went back and I refused it on the grounds it was, I forget what the wording was, malicious and something. And I went to Ombudsman, maybe, I can't remember now. And was successful there in squashing it. And I just went to the person and said, what is it you're looking for? I will find it for you. But we're not giving you, every file we have, kind of thing. So there's that. But if anybody's ever dealt with the Human Rights Commission, it's very, very similar. So if somebody makes a complaint at Human Rights Commission, it's not investigated. It's just automatically acted on, and they immediately want to go to arbitration with and there's a bunch of procedures, and it goes through a bunch of things first before it's even looked at by any kind of committee. We went through one for a wrongful dismissal once, and that's just the way, that's their procedure. So Human Rights Commission has a very similar kind of procedure in those types of complaints. And maybe there's valid reason for that. I mean, I'm no expert on why you do this. There's probably an argument to be made. I'm not sure what it is, but there's probably an argument to be made that way. But yeah, and I'm not advocating for some of the things in this bill either, but I do see a need for some of it. And what this does do is it replaces the planning appeal board. So we've gone from a board of 3 sort of appointed people, and I'm not even sure what the process was to appoint those people on the planning appeal board, to this new board of, I think it's 7 or 8. And they have a much broader scope, of course, but then I think that's going to be of an advantage, so that they can look at what they're supposed to do, is look at if the process was followed, which is the intent of the plan. If you make an appeal, or if you were granted a variance and somebody argued against it and somebody else wanted to appeal to this planning appeal board, if they look at the outcome of it and they say, we don't agree with the outcome, that's actually not what they're supposed to be doing. What they're supposed to do is look at the planning department and say, did you follow due process? Did you do things by the book? Is this way? But respect the decision of the PRAC or PAC. This gives us a fighting chance that would happen. I hope. Trying to be positive. Yeah, I hope, but there's a lot of nuances in the bill. And I think Bonnie had a great point of let's have somebody actually talk to us about it.
Jim,
I think the government already has the power of trusteeship. That at any point in time, I mean, they've done it voluntarily and involuntarily. RSC 8 was put in trusteeship where the RSC was basically disbanded and a trustee was put in their place. The government did that. That was an involuntary one. Harvey's community and had a lack of a quorum for council. So voluntarily, a trustee was put in place for that municipality. So they already have that power. They don't really need to have it added. It's just something that's already been done. Maybe it's a new wording of the same thing, but it seems a lot more threatening for some respect. Sue has her hand up too.
oh, no,
Is that,
that's the most.
oh, that's the most? Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, no, not a hand. I was looking at that. It's the most.
It's not a yellow one.
No, it's on yellow. My mistake.
How you make a quiet entrance late, eh? Yeah. Everything they've done in the last few weeks with all these new bills and stuff seems to be more taking the votes and stuff out of things like, you know what I mean, like the whole education bill, same thing.
Yeah.
Now you got people appointed, not voted in. How are you gonna get your word to anybody?
It's consolidation.
Health, the health thing, the same thing. They did help.
Health minister. Yeah.
So so they probably have some of that strength already,
Yeah.
which is what we're coming to. But there's gotta be a reason to put it in.
Well,
writing, like they've done,
it-
maybe it's legalities or something.
If you create this board, this committee, whatever you're gonna call it, commission, to oversee all these organizations, and you're gonna pay people a good salary to sit on this, then they're going to want to earn their salary. So that means that everything that comes in gets investigated, I would think. I mean, it would just seem to be the way that things would go. That in order to make their existence necessary, then they've got to be really busy. So they will be.
Well, I mean, right now, if you put anything into the ombud, you're good luck.
2 years.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll wait to hear back from you, Hollis, to see how you make out with the other CAO.
But who are we thinking is gonna come talk to us, though?
I don't know.
Deputy
I think
minister.
it's just gonna be upstairs anyway. I just don't know if I don't know. I'll entertain it.
Who's replacing Ryan now?
They can be rather rehearsed before they come.
Currently, it's Jennifer Wilkins is acting
Uh-huh.
DM. They haven't made an appointment,
Okay, yeah.
but I'll ask Jennifer.
But I don't think anybody would be able to make it in time because it's already past second reading.
Yeah.
It's already going to committee. So once it's at committee level and they take whatever questions, concerns, it's going back third reading done.
The house usually closes.
Yeah,
Second
well,
week
they're
of
trying to
June, third
push
week of
15
June.
bills through now in the last
Yeah.
2 weeks before the house closes. So this is one of them. Then.
So the only thing that we have done is we made some noise. We've done that already. You know, then he's made the noise.
Yeah.
In the public, so maybe February might end up differently than we think.
Has anybody else put a letter into the minister? Ours went out last week after I sent it to you guys, and we sent
We
Andrea
did.
a copy of it.
We knew that you and Dee were doing it, but
Yeah. You want me to be AFA and be in the cities all.
Yeah, they made a mutual, and then ours went to the minister, deputy minister, Andrea. I think there was 3 on the CC list.
Well, the other thing to do right now, if you wanted a meeting, actually is talk to your other ways. Say, can you talk to us about this? Can anybody talk? Can you, because they're the ones there sitting with it.
they have to vote on it.
I think they know there's concern though, like even front page of the Telegraph Journal this morning, the mayor of Fredericton basically said it was a slap in the face, right? So I think to say they weren't aware that people aren't comfortable with the way that this is worded now, I don't think that's something they can use, but the minister's response to that is there's still time to basically in different words, but educate us on what it really is about, right? So not that we're gonna change it, we'll educate you on what it's really about, right? So that'll probably tell you what's to come, but for reform, you think that they would be looking to bring something in a little smoother.
So anything that would give a minister the opportunity to get involved politically into a certain area. Yeah, I'm fully against.
Yeah, especially, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Especially a minister that it might not be elected in our area. Like
Exactly.
I think the minister should have to work with the board just like we do, which is the rest of the ministers and MLAs. Like they shouldn't just be able to call the shot themselves. Should have to go through a process again with value.
Exactly. I tried to.
So they're overruling a public process without a public process. That's the foundational challenge of it all, right? So, and the other thing is, I know this is recorded, but a lot of this stuff that's happening to local governments is under the assumption that the provincial government knows best. And the truth of the matter is, if you look at management of government throughout the history of time, the province of New Brunswick, unfortunately, is probably one of the worst examples we have of properly managing government. So consistently overstepping and bringing themselves into local politics. I understand reform, I understand the benefits, but to me, I think they know best than what we know for our own communities. I think it's actually kind of ignorant, to be completely honest with you.
Absolutely.
So we're just gonna get in the cars and head her up there now, or what are we doing?
It's working. Brands, I guess. Okay, well, I'm glad we got that out on the table.
Yeah.
We will have Hollis, reach out through his network to see if we can get somebody to come and have a chat with us. Or at least have a chat with all of the, CEOs and the chairs perhaps, and then they can come back, with information. We'll see how that goes. Is there anything else under old business? Anybody wants to bring up? I don't have anything under new business. Does anybody have anything that they'd like to bring up under new business?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm being pushed for policing issues to come here. My issues, not as, I mean, as council, like they are pushing any policing issues to come to this table. Like my last meeting, actually yesterday. So what are we doing here about that? I guess, like, are we gonna start working on that? I know it's public safety here.
Well, we do have a public safety committee, but the public safety committee is different than policing itself. Like there's public safety is really about, first responder. Like it's different than. What would you like me to do?
Well, I'm not sure. I would just like to keep doing what I'm doing, to be honest, but they're saying if you get your issues, they want to bring, well, and I kind of get what they're saying. They don't want to go from me to you, to you, to you. They'd rather come and talk to us all.
Yeah.
And I get that because probably all our issues are the same. So I do understand that point of view. So, but we need to have something in place so we can do that.
Well, I agree with them. This needs to be a body that takes that issue on because RSC 10 now, the policing is associated with the RSCs. So in fact, this table does have to have interaction with that policing. How that interaction is going to take place, I'm not quite sure yet. And that's to be discussed around this table, just because I don't know. I think the other RSCs, when we had our other meeting, this did come up in conversation, was about policing and the lack of presence in other communities. It's not just in RSC 10. So yeah, I think it's a perfect spot to bring it up and talk to the other 11 RSCs about it, and then see if there's if there's enough interest to to make it a concerted effort amongst all the RSCs, or that we go after it alone. I don't know, but I've always felt strength in numbers. If we can get more RSCs involved with us, complaining about the lack of policing and the justice system, quite frankly, then that's probably a good venue to start it in. So,
Yeah, sorry, it is quite fluid. It's not just a policing issue, so that's the other problem. Yeah.
So, I mean, we can do whatever, I will do whatever I'm directed to do here. Just a couple of suggestions. We had a policing committee and it didn't go well, so we disbanded that a couple of years ago. And now this public safety committee. We do have the RCMP that give us quarterly reports and will come here on a quarterly basis, and we did that priorities exercise before. If we want to take it forward and resurrect a different form of policing committee, which is separate than the public safety committee, we can do that. That's one idea. We can have separate special meetings to discuss, but I think there ought to be a plan attached and some goals, some specific goals. And some of that could be, first of all, like figuring out, understanding the PPSA, the agreement that we all have, except for St. Andrews has their own, but
under the province, yeah.
with the province,
Yeah,
right?
relations.
What's contained in that commercial service agreement,
I got a copy of that.
and what is one thing we ought to be doing, I think, is making sure that they're meeting their end of their obligation, right? Right. Here's your agreement. Here's what you guys are all paying. I think it works out to $7 million.
Yeah.
For the region for policing, and so you're meeting your end of the bargain, are they? And who's measuring that? And because we've been talking a lot about metrics and KPIs and all kinds of stuff for every other service that we're about to offer and do.
Yeah.
Similar things have to, I think, evolve from RCMP. So I think if it's well organized and we talk about that, we look at the contract, we look at our obligations, we look at their obligations and figure out if they're meeting their obligations. And if they're not, what is our remedy? And how do we affect that? So that's something that can be on a separate special, like a special board meeting, or I can involve the other RSCs. I can't guarantee I'm going to get complete involvement with the other RSCs, but I'm sure a lot of them will be involved.
I know Bonnie wants to make a comment, then I've got something I'd like to put on the table as well.
Just basically agreeing with what Hollis has said. When we had our priority setting meeting, one of the things that we talked about was having some way to quantify or to measure, because our priorities, I think, were very similar this year to what they were last year. But how do we measure how those priorities are being met? And I know that they're difficult to measure. Is it in the number of arrests? Is it in reduction of crime? But I think we have to have that conversation with the police, because they probably have an idea of how they determine if they are being successful, for lack of a better word. So how do we measure those things? But I don't think we're in a place in any of our communities, I know we're not from Graham and Ann's perspective, that we can just sit and once a year sit down with the RCMP, say these are our priorities, and go home and feel good about it. I think that we need to be having these conversations more than just once a year. And it may be, instead of getting a quarterly report, maybe we have a quarterly meeting with them, or they come in and present the report quarterly, something like that. But given the amount of money as municipalities we're all paying, I think if nothing less, we should be able to have someone come to a meeting once in a while and tell us how things are going.
One of the things that I did was when we were having our problems in the cabin, they've lessened, they haven't gone away. But one of the things that we did is we went in and had a chat with the Minister of Public Safety. And when I spoke with him, I had Donnie Doherty with me. And we went in, we spoke with him for 2 hours. He had his top police folks with him. And so we did that, and we did get some satisfaction out of that. We got extra policing for a little bit because it was put on the hot burner. But I think where you're coming from in St. Stephen is basically the same thing, and all the communities are going through that. So maybe what we need to do too is, as Hollis said, we go back through the documents. I've already done that. When it comes to the trying to get numbers as to what they are responsible for, it's half a page. The rest of that whole document is all boilerplate about who's paying who's doing what and all those kinds of things. But as far as setting the goals as to what they are supposed to do, it's basically promote good law or law and order within the communities. It's very nebulous. And that needs to be changed. So if we all go and we have a look at that, make sure that your councils all wanted to go from a regional perspective and perhaps talk to the minister of public safety. I don't mind going back in, sitting down with him for a couple hours, or him, or I don't know who it is.
No, it's a good point, because the RCMP, I mean, the message I seem to be getting whenever we've had these meetings with RCMP is that they're under contract from just, public safety.
Yeah.
So that contract, they know what they're getting paid, and presumably they're filling out their end of the contract, because so maybe that contract needs to be better. So maybe our problem really isn't with the RCMP or the police. Maybe our problem is really with public safety, and to try to get them to make a better contract, for lack of a better term, a more enforceable contract, a more detailed on outcomes, a more detailed on actual actions and things like that. I think the problem is sitting right there with that particular contract. The RCMP, as far as they're concerned, are doing their job and meeting the obligations of their obligations on the contract problem. The contract's the problem. Just
Jim,
a
sorry, Jim.
suggestion.
One of the communities that I represent has been having trouble. They've had a flare up of minor crimes, but they've been unable to get in touch with the RCMP to report crimes, because most people don't know the 1-800 number, and most people aren't aware of how to report on the line if they have internet. So they just keep calling the office, and the office doesn't answer. The office hours are, I think, 10 to 4. So if you don't call between 10 and 4, you can't report it. If it's not a crime in progress, then it's not a 911 issue. So you really shouldn't use the 911. But how do you get to these, how do you report if no one seems to be able to contact the office during the hours?
What we did, there is a number that you can call. It's a non-emergency.
Yeah, that's the 1-800 something RCMP.
Yeah.
But not everyone has that. Now, I was wondering whether we could post that information on the RSC webpage, just to have it as an extra place, so that when someone does call, you can say, okay, check the webpage for RSC 10. You'll see how to report online, or what the 1-800 number is.
In our municipality, we actually made those magnets that you stick
Yeah.
on your fridge, and it has the numbers.
Yeah.
Good idea.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
So we did that. Everybody should have.
I got a
that on their
question.
fridge and those.
You brought it forward. But what does St. Stephen want us to do?
Well, like I said, every time I bring up an issue, I'm pushed, I'm guided here.
Absolutely.
That's what's going on.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll just give you an example. We are looking at another layer of policing, but that's there's a cost to that.
Oh,
So my question to the people that are providing their service right now is, what if I gave you that money? What could you do for me? Could you put 2 more officers on the street? Maybe that might be my better option, because they're already working together, and they're part of the system that's already in place, and administrative and all that stuff. But they can't answer that question, because they work for this contract. And it's not like I can just get 2 police officers for St. Stephen and pay $500,000 for it. But yeah, I'd like to go that option.
Clarifying question for your contracts. What does it like? So for a municipal contract, it says I have X number of officers. What does the one that you make with the province say? Does it say we just respond to calls, or does it say this is how many officers, or this is a service? Like, what is the measurable, quantifiable number that comes with your guys' dollars? Because
Yeah, they come out and they basically say that they will provide on-call service for a set number of hours per day, which for McAdam was 16 hours a day. So it can be any 16, but it tends to be more the non-midnight hours. And so, because it's only 16 hours a day, and I suspect all your contracts are reading that way. But
I
yeah,
think it's provincially though. I think it's people per province, and that's why it's hard to go envision individual municipalities.
Yeah, that's
so that could mean one officer though.
it could be.
16, it could mean.
And does the service provided mean it has to be macadam? So you can get them hours in that service, but it could be a St. Stephen officer or St. Andrew.
Well, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a different, but yeah, so that officer, like for us, our officer could be St. Stephen. The other night, they come up all the way up there. So it's, you're not getting, you're getting the hours, or we're covering you, but it's not.
It's like,
In your-
it's like the
yeah.
ambulance service. level too.
Same thing, ambulance, it's dynamic deployment is what they use.
Regionally, we're paying for 39.5 officers. That's our contingent.
Okay, I was wondering, is there a calculation for that?
I'm not sure. In the contract, but you gotta dig deep to find it.
So I have a number too, and I know that I have a separate contract, but in reality,
You're
I'm the exact same as all of you. It's just a paper contract. I have the same service that everybody here has. If you're busy, I have no officers. If we're busy, you have no officers. So the real question is, when you calculate that versus what's actually in this region, I'd like to know what that number really looks like.
Mhm.
So if we're together, if you're saying, what was 39.5? And I'm
Well,
three,
at one time, it was 2 or 3 years ago.
and I'm three, so
I don't
42,
know if it
whatever.
changed.
Is there that many officers truly in the region working?
No.
No.
So therefore, they're taking our money. They've entered in an agreement and they're not living up to that agreement. So we're not paying the bill. We're paying a portion of it and that'll be redirected because you didn't provide that service, right? Like, that's where we have to get to, right?
But I
Like,
wonder if they're in their contract, and I'm just probably going off a little bit with ambulance services. Is they use dynamic deployment, so it's the same thing. So they got one truck in Wildwood covering all Charlotte County, but they're allowed because their contract states that as long as they make the call 90% of the time, they're good. So they can park one truck wherever, but they'll come in here and tell you they're doing a great job and don't worry, St. Stephen, it's fine. But it's not fine because I worked on it, and it's not. St. Andrews is being robbed a lot of places.
But especially when they have to call our firefighters,
Right,
which we're paying for, right, to go, to do their job.
oh, definitely, and a lot of
It's not
fire.
your guys' fault, but
No,
that's
no,
what's
but a lot
happening.
of fire services now are saying, you know, what's the call? We're not, like, I know we had one the other day, St. Stephen, Oak Bay. All went, and it was like, because the nearest ambulance was 50 minutes away, so. Policing's the same thing, like Brad said, is if there's a whatever type of call, policing, all of his officers are out, his town is empty, and.
we're not gonna be able to measure it anyway, because they're gonna say, well, part of those hours is towards cyber crime, which is.
Which is
right.
two-
So that way, there's
employee-
never a true measure of.
Yeah, there are 2 employees for cyber and 1/2 for the director for the entire region. So we pay half a salary for the regional director, 2 cyber crimes that work out of Grand Bay, and 37 officers that are supposed to be available for service here. Now, at any given time, there's people that are recertifying, there's people that are out on sick leave, there's people that are out on maternity leave, mental health days, you name it. How many number our officers are actually there? Their answer is, if we can't meet the needs as people put in calls for service, then we draw from other areas like Grand Bay Westfield or wherever, and they say that they'll pull officers in. And I know they've done that on weekends when they haven't had enough officers down here. They'll bring in some officers from
And that's,
Grand
that's
Bay.
what they do, because the other night when I worked again, separate thing,
Yeah.
I call in St. Stephen, RCMP were the ones that responded way up there.
Yeah.
So it was like, this area was empty.
Yeah.
That officer went up there because there was no officers up there, and there's
Yeah.
just Rob and Peter to pay Paul
Yeah.
to cover that whole game.
So I was told this as well, so Bonnie's world over there is that the officers on Grand Am don't get pulled away because they're protected over there. So, but in the same token, though, when bodies are out, no one's replacing them either, so it's a double-edged sword. But that's what they told me last night or yesterday.
Since we're talking about you, Bonnie, you better.
I don't think I'd go quite so far to say they're not pulled away. I think they have to maintain a minimum number of people on the island.
Mhm.
But that doesn't necessarily mean we have 4 officers that are stationed on Grand Manan, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we always have 4 officers on Grand Manan. So they have to maintain 2. I think here is what the minimum number is, but the other 2 could be traveling for court in St. John. We had an officer who was out in Alberta 3 weeks ago for court cases from when he was stationed out there. We don't always have the minimum number of 4.
That's kind of why I brought it up, because I want to hear the truth.
I think, one of the things I always wanted to see in that contract was what is your response time? When you're called out for a 911, how quick do people get there? So if everybody's pulled out of St. Stephen and they're down in Black and something serious happens here, how long does it take them to get here? What becomes acceptable and what is not acceptable? So if you had and I've asked that question several times, I get weird answers as to what the response time is. Because I know we had a truck accident there, someone was killed, it took over 2 hours. Yeah, the roads weren't very good and all this other stuff, but it was over 2 hours. You've got somebody laying on the side of the road waiting, for police to come. Another situation where a person died and it took hours for them to come that time. Although we did tell them, hey, look, there's nothing, the guy tell him he died. There was nothing nefarious going on there. It was just an accident. So, I mean, you get those questions and it's always been in the back of my mind. How quickly do I need to have them there? Because we had another incident where we had a guy, was it a knife or a machete? Anyway, a high school kid, he was gonna go at somebody. We had nobody. They had to come from Nashua and from Fredericton. I mean, it was crazy that.
And that would be 911 call?
That was on a 911 call.
This is stuff that people the general public don't see, and I guess I got a different hat because I work it, and I'm telling you, it's Charlotte County, most nights would scare you.
It's scary.
It would scare you, and I know we're on the record here, but it really would. And a lot of times these companies like ambulance, fire, they hide behind operations. So they won't tell you the true stat, the true numbers, because they'll come back and say, well, that's operations. We can't publicize how many officers are in this or how many are in this area because it takes away from, you don't want to know there's one officer at St. Andrews covering the whole area and then there's bank robbery and.
Like when I was up in Clear last, I looked after the radars that we had up there, and we had contractors that ran those radars. And those radars had to be operational a certain percentage of the time. And if it fell below that percentage, then there were repercussions within the contract that were made to happen. I don't see that in our RCMP policing contracts. What are the repercussions when you have all your communities are up in arms saying, I'm not getting the policing that I'm paying for, and then nothing happens? How do you hold their feet to the fire? And it's not in the contract.
And that's what I'm saying. You need measurable, measurable things within the contract that you can point to, that are quantifiable, and then you need a remedy built into the contract as well. And if that remedy is withholding of funds, I guarantee you they'll meet the minimum, right? Because right now, there's no loss of financing or anything from them. There's no, and how are you going to measure it? What are you going to do about it?
I think on that point, and I guess to Mayor Morrison, kind of your point is, I think we should invite the RCMP to come in with our strategic priorities and let us know how they're going to be actioning them. And at that point, we could put them and say, so how are you going to measure this? But let them come and say, this is our plan. And if they come and don't have a plan, then it's just lip service. If you set priorities and there's no actions around it, they didn't do anything with what we put on the table. So let them present that. And if you make them present, they're going to have to put some thought into it. And then from what they say, then maybe you might be able to get some measurable objectives based on how they think. And then, although we know our communities well, certain types of crime, they have a better idea on how to deal with, obviously, than us because they live it, right? So we should ask them to come in and do a follow-up.
Well, I think we can do that because once we get the next quarterly report, I will send that out to everybody and we will arrange. We need to have a quarterly meeting with them, I think, when that report comes out to discuss.
Yeah, and ask for the action, ask for an action plan.
Did we answer your question?
Oh, well, I think we already started working on it, so I think I got what I wanted.
Shot resources. If I say in St. Andrews, I want to add an extra officer, that is absolutely pointless for my individual community because that officer is just going to be deployed elsewhere if they even do get them. I'm just,
I was told that when I mentioned it.
yeah, I'm just.
Yeah.
And now if you hire a contract that's specific to you and they will have to be in your community. So that is the advantage of that.
It was good to see the letter from the minister saying they're gonna pay for the raises of the RCMP. Chris Austin said it last week.
I didn't see that.
They're challenging it.
They're challenging.
They're challenging.
No, but they said that if it doesn't go their way.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh,
that's right.
okay, all right.
They'll end up paying for it.
Well, that's still good for you, but not if you're on a
So
daily
if,
basis.
yeah, so if the feds don't do it, and the profits don't.
Because I read that, I didn't see that.
No, you- I didn't read it. They said it again. It doesn't go-
One other community.
They're not paying all of it. We've already paid some of it
Yeah.
through the last few years.
Well, yeah.
Overcharged. So again, I don't know how they figure that out, but,
Still good news on that.
But they're the other one in the theory.
Okay.
all right, no, thank you guys.
We'll move beyond that one. Anything else under new business?
Nope, but the only thing I would add to this whole RCMP discussion, I've said this before, and you've probably heard me say this, is I know that people are, they're concerned and they think we need more. More police doesn't equal less crime.
No,
So really what you want is less crime, not more police.
right?
So. and
Police is
that's-
reactive.
Yes, yeah, so if we can start thinking in that direction, that's part of what we do with community development, that's part of where that goes, right? So we're reaching the very edges there, but there's more to it. And I don't know the answers, I'm no expert, so.
So, well, I'll just add this, and this didn't come from police, this came from talking about the same topic. This all started, like, the drug issue that we're into right now, this started with us 10 years ago. Went up the west coast, Vancouver, and then worked its way across Canada, and now here it is. But what I was told, and it made a lot of sense, take a look at Vancouver today. Nothing's changed.
Then they always not
Right?
getting better.
The crime's still there. But they've added extra layers and actual tactical teams and all that, and it's still there.
Oh, yeah.
So you're exactly right, and I'm saying the same thing. It's all about how the community is and what's going on in the community is creating the crime and the homelessness and all that stuff is creating more crime. So you got to deal with that too, and that's not a policing issue, period. That's part of us, and that's part of the province. We got to work on that.
There was an article that came out today. There was a doctor who had been working, and I'm not sure if it was Vancouver or San Francisco. She'd been working there for the last 3 years on these safe injection sites and safe this and safe that. She said that's really got to be relooked because it's not working. It's just making the problem worse. So it was interesting to look at some people who have been actually living that, and now they're coming to realize that a lot of the soft policies that were being followed are not actually working. I don't know what the answer is, but it was interesting to see that somebody that had been doing that is coming to the realization it's not solving the issue.
When is there a meeting for public safety? Is there? I get that.
I'm on the committee. I haven't had one yet. We have in Fundy Shores. We've had hourly.
Yeah.
Haven't arranged it yet.
Yeah, my deputy mayor is on that and he keeps asking me. But
No, I asked, I think last meeting we were at.
Yeah.
So I'll just leave this because I want to share what I've learned. Is the other thing I've really noticed is how quickly people do adapt, because it has gotten better in St. Stephen, or the calls have slowed down, but I think it's because it hasn't slowed down. It's just people are more used to what they're seeing, so they're not talking about it as much. And that's the other thing I fear is we're just changing into this, and then it's just going to be normal everyday life for us, like out west, maybe across. So it is amazing how it's still a hot topic, but it's not as bad. Yeah. But also we got the more police like you did for a couple of weeks too. Like they did hammer after for a while, but that'll come about, slow down.
That slows down again.
Anyway, I'm done on part one.
So, just so we're clear, my action points on this are, as you brought this forward, we discussed, so we're definitely going to have quarterly reports from the RCMP that are going to be matched with quarterly meetings.
At that first meeting, what we want to do is, as Brad suggested, have them come with an action plan for our 3 priority items. We have that discussion. And then following that, we make a determination as to whether or not we want to sit down with the Minister of Public Safety, which may be a good thing to do anyway. sit down with him and go over that contract. And talk about, certainly the contract. I'd like to talk to him about the judicial system, a little bit on that one. I'd like to bring up the point that, Bonnie and Harvey have brought up about the, lack of a court here in St. Stephen. Because there's one of the things that stuck in my mind was you need to see justice done. And that is in fact so true. So I would like to bring that up in the discussion with him as well.
Not only that, but it's taking our RCMP up with all of it in court.
Two of them.
I'll donate a courthouse to this cause. You think I'm joking?
You've got one to give away, haven't you?
No, serious offenses, they need certain levels of security, but for like, it's right there.
Yeah.
It's right there. It's, the building hasn't been repurposed. It's available right now.
I think this police matter, though, I don't know if it should be a separate committee or something. I think it's something we need to handle it so that we have these quarterly meetings with them. I know everybody's busy. We're all busy, but I think it's too important a matter just to get other people to deal with it. I think we need to deal with it. And I think we need to
Part of
put
our
our,
committee meeting, yeah.
we need to put our foot down and make something happen. I don't know how we're gonna do it. We got,
Is that something?
we've all tried, but I mean, like, I listen to Ken and he's having problems with the detachment rate. Well, and so that you guys all do, I guess, but, and you know, he's had to wait 2 hours for somebody for an accident. Like, that's crazy.
Stronger united though.
That's right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So should we ask for a court? We open back up down this way? If you have one sitting in St. Andrews?
I'm dead. I'm so serious about that.
No, but why not?
I'm back it out.
You don't get anywhere without asking. It keeps the
It's called heat
RCMP.
pumps in there.
I don't care where it goes, well, just
They never.
somewhere handier than St. John.
You do know who hangs out in front of the course before we go in, right? You don't care what you're asking for.
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying, but like, you wouldn't put major offenses because
Yeah,
there's a certain level of security that's required, but like if our officers don't have to travel up for traffic infractions, and they
Oh,
can
yeah.
actually be in the community driving from St. Stephen to St. Andrews or.
you're gonna see that
like,
change anyway, so sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
That's gonna go online too.
Should.
Yeah, that's coming. But yeah, so quarterly report was just given to us a month ago,
Whenever the last meeting was, we had it.
and that was a fresh one at that month, so I'm just trying to think of when the next report comes, so 2 months or a month and a half.
1 month.
End of
Yeah.
June, isn't
I'm
it?
thinking there was a couple
Yeah.
months.
June,
Yeah,
June 30th.
So I'm just trying to think of when the next report is, and I wonder if we should have a dedicated meeting for that report to get ourselves in order for that meeting. And then, and get the request in soon, like that, like right away, that we want to see the Minister of Public Safety and police. I don't know if you can put them in the same room or not, I don't know.
I think you keep them separate. The minister will have his.
It'd be better
senior
so.
folks with him.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
Or,
Well, yeah,
but I guess I wouldn't mind doing that before the report comes out.
Yeah, I think it should be I think it's end of June. Because the quarter, for them, it's Q1.
I don't have one with me.
So maybe it's July.
That's not fair away.
But they're on a different cycle, like,
Like that. Well, I thought they followed government typical,
Yeah.
year end in March, but I could be wrong. I'll look it up. Figure it out.
maybe Q1 is from March to June 30th.
Yeah, that's what, yeah. that's
That
what-
would be their Q1. The one that they delivered last would have been Q4.
Q3 or Q4.
Email it to us. I'm doing that one.
Q1.
I figure Brad's gonna have it here soon, I see him getting it.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah.
They don't
Okay.
send this one anymore.
So we're good with that for now?
Take care of it.
Anything else under new business you want to bring up? Committee and staff reports, CEO report. Oh,
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I kind of combined some stuff in this CEO report. I'm not going to skim through it as quickly as I normally do, because there's a couple of things I want to bring your attention to. First one being the solid waste totals. slightly down from last year, but still on par with 2021 totals. And I'm assuming the trend is going to be 15% lower for the rest of the year unless something else changes. So just expect to see that. I put a little bit more detailed the planning report, like the graph here, and this is just a report I pulled off of our internal system. Just to show you all the different types of activities and permits and things that's happening. I can tell you right now, I thought maybe this year building permits and stuff might slow down with interest rates and building cost materials and everything. Nope. Not even a little bit, like just as fast as they can. Probably going to be another record year if things keep going the way they are.
If there's more carpenters available, it would be even more.
But there would.
That's the only thing holding it back right now. There's people that want stuff that they get right now, they can't get there.
Yeah, no, it's, yeah, well, you know, it's, if there was more labor available, I'd have to get more staff. Because they would build them twice as fast. It's just, anyway, so I included the community development piece in here. Ray wrote this for me. Just so you have an update of what's happening there. A little bit is about the planning process so far and how that is, but also some of the other things that we've gone through. There's a lot of, we had a discussion the other day about somebody was asking, well, does every request for funding and things have to come up to the board of directors of the Regional Service Commission? The answer is no. If it's something that Ray would handle at his end and he's got funding for it or grant for it to go through, that's what happens. So we had several things here. Sophia Recovery Center. We had Fundy Shores. There was a recreation library grant. There was a 60 middle school. There was Vincent Massey, the chef program, Campobello. There was the microwaves there. So there's a bunch of those things that you don't normally hear about that happens through, and we just handle that stuff because we're talking about, you know, $1,500, $3,000, things like that. Like I'm not gonna. Anyway, those things are happening. I'm going to get him to continue to report on just so we have them captured, and so we know if people ask you what the hell's going on, and you've got something to refer to.
For the money.
And he's been doing a lot of work with, like I said, we connect with the Regional Resiliency and Horizon Health community developer, and they've been making a lot of trips all around the region, different areas, for various, like, so that they've been out there on top of all of the strategic planning that we've been doing. So I think it's really helped that. So it used to be Vibrant Communities, and Ray was the executive director and the only employee, but half of his time was administrative and other stuff that wasn't actually doing his job. And he's finding that now, being freed of all those things, he can be a lot more effective in his role. So that actually worked quite well. So it's good to see. Sherry wrote me a report here on recreation and tourism. Won't go through all of it, but the one thing of note here, there was a tender out for another piece of the Fishbone Trail that we have funding for the government, and so we did the tender opening here. There wasn't anything conclusive. We did an award right then. Most of them were over engineers' estimates. So we've asked them to go back and tweak some things on the bids. You know, there's some things we can do to fix, you know, some of it's the riprap might need less of it over here. There's just different things we can do to make that happen. And this is for the piece that's through Musquash and connects at the other end. So we should have more news on that, I think, shortly.
For what it's worth, every engineering estimate we're getting right now, they're coming in higher than on all work we're doing. So it's probably, I'm guessing it's consistent across the board right now.
Probably.
Yeah, our engineers were actually lower than the tender ended up being.
The engineering estimate was lower.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what they
That's
are.
right, yeah, so we got
that's what I
hit
said,
with
that
this
one.
year. it was up by, I don't know, 15%.
We had to cut projects because.
Shaken.
Yeah,
Or cut it down.
yeah.
Yeah, that's what we're doing. And it's the same thing. And I'm sure you're all facing the same.
Yeah.
We did the same. We had so much paving we wanted to do, we had that much money. And all of a sudden it was like 30% less. We were paving, so now you gotta pick your spot.
Pick which 10 feet you want to do.
Yeah. You're only doing half
Well, no,
the side of the trail.
I think we can re-engineer, like not re-engineer, but change some of the parameters. Like
Yeah, but here, I'll give you an example. If you go to adjust something and cut it back and say, we'll take on it next year, it's actually going to cost you more for the project. Yeah. Because you're not doing it in the same phase, and we committed that. So I think last night we just bit the bullet and kept it and just did it. But I'm gonna tell you, our reserves are scary,
Yeah.
but you can't cut it back and then, setting up and doing it all over again.
But you always allow a contingency, right? So because you invariably run into something. So, and we've got, a finite amount of money for this project. That's it. So, anyway, we'll get it. We'll
I
get
just
it
don't
there.
know where all these workers went. I'll tell you, no one's bidding either.
Yeah, there's that too.
Well, I ran in the same situation. I wanted to do some work on our main building. I can't get anybody in town to put a bid in. So now I go outside of town
Oh, wait for this.
and if I can find somebody, and I don't think I will, but if I do, and I spend the money, I'm gonna hear it. Yeah, and if I don't know what to do. You're caught between the horns of the bull.
It's not a good position to be in that we're in when you get one person bidding, but
Sorry to sidetrack you.
Oh, that's all right. All good stuff. All good
no,
stuff.
that's what we're here for, to learn, share our problems.
So in other stuff, so there's been some recent changes that, as you all know, in our solid waste, we lost our biggest customer there. So far, the impact on us financially is that our surplus isn't going to be nearly as big. We still are in a surplus position, and after I get through these next couple of months of strategic planning, we get into the budget season in the summer. That'll really tell me that where we're going to be. We should be okay, but if we're going to have to adjust tipping fees, it won't be a huge amount, I don't imagine. The reason for that, I'm going to skip a paragraph here, is because of recycling and circular materials. So the other thing that's happened is today I had a meeting with all the CAOs here, and we had 2 reps from circular materials, and I had Mike Young here, our solid waste director, to talk about the potential contracts that they have sent out to all municipalities for collection of solid waste, and they're in here too. And what that's going to mean. And I clarified with them. So the theory is that recycling doesn't cost any money anymore because you guys are looking after it. And the answer was yes. Well, I think we need to be careful moving forward on and take a good look at these contracts. And the way it works is this: if you sign the contract now, November 1st, they will pay you basically 25% of what your collection costs are, and you'll continue to do the exact same thing that you're doing now. 25% meaning, the 1 week for recycling. That's the simple version. The more complicated version is that means you're also taking on responsibility. You're taking on some liabilities there. The carts themselves, the recycling carts, are property of the Service Commission, but they need to be property of the municipalities. I think the answer there is to just, if they're in your municipality, like unless you guys want to come up with something different than that.
I just said people should own
Well, it's either, that's the way the contract is written, is that, and the reason it being, the municipality is now liable and responsible for these carts. And so there's that. You're the ones answering the phones and probably providing the education. There's going to be some funds that they're going to give you towards education. But That's, all of that stuff is the responsibility of the municipalities under this contract. You can all get together and say, Service Commission, you continue to do it, we'll pay you to do that, or whatever you want to do, it's up to you. So anyway, there's a lot of nuances to this thing. The alternative is, so under this November 1st one, that means that you, the municipality, are signing the contract with Circular Materials, and they are writing a check to you. If you don't do that, if you just opt out of that, 6 months from then, like nothing will change, but 6 months from then, Circular Materials has to do it. So at that point, it won't be a contract that municipalities will have with Circular Materials. Circular Materials will have their own, or contract with their own collector. And then they will just handle it. And then you're out of the recycling business.
This is probably the better way to go. Less headaches.
I think you have to recycling business.
Oh, not like we're making profit on it, that's for sure, so.
No, and as far as the Circular Materials and Regional Service Commission, we haven't seen anything from them yet, but we did ask them about it today. So the intention is that all the recycled materials still come to our facility, because there's nowhere else to take them anyway. And then they get shipped to wherever they're getting shipped to. Probably the same sorter for now. They might change that later or whatever. But their intention is that they're going to pay us for our costs. And they want to do it on a per ton basis, and I don't want to do it on a per ton basis. I want to do it on what it actually costs us to run the facility for a year. I think that's a better way of doing a flat fee. So we have to negotiate that over the next couple of months, and it's happening fairly quickly. So there's a lot to think about. Your CAOs, you should talk to them about this. They were all here today.
How they feel. Collectively.
Right.
I can go ask mine.
There's a lot to get into in that statement of work and contract. Like it's a pretty big one. It's a pretty complicated one. There's a lot of lawyer speak in it, like more than any other contract I've seen. I'm just stating what I've seen. I think this is a good deal. I mean, this is a great deal because it gets us out of the liability of having to deal with recycling. But the warning is, and Mike Young, who's been around this for 27 years and dealing with this, he says every other program that's come along, paint and oil and tires and hazardous waste and electronics and all that, we always end up being the short end of the stick. We always end up picking up the pieces at the end financially, and it always lands back on the taxpayer and never becomes a true EPR program. Recycling, these recyclable materials are a lot more in terms of volume and things like that. So it's important to get this one right, because otherwise, we end up in the same thing. So, the simple answer is do nothing. And they're mandated to do this.
If I do nothing, like literally don't even collect it, don't do anything, they're gonna collect it.
Don't sign the contract. Say,
When you say do nothing, I'm
Wait
not
6 months.
doing anything.
Wait the 6 months, and you gotta do it.
I mean, for now, we continue to do what we're doing, and you can tell them we're not going to sign it. You guys can handle this, and their date for that is May 1st, 2024.
Sorry, what's the disadvantage of that though? Just to be clear. That's what I'm trying to say. There's gotta be a disadvantage. I feel like that, maybe I'm just being skeptical, but like, it seems like a pretty too clear no-brainer just to do nothing.
So for us and Fundy Shores, would they merge both our contracts and do?
It's going to be complicated for you.
Because
Because-
Linda briefed me a bit this afternoon when she left, and she said there's a little more in depth that we got to get into, but my first instinct was, because we're opening them contracts this year to try to, so I thought, well, this could be my way out of just letting them take both. But
They have to by May 1st of 24. But you will have the disadvantage to just letting them do it is you're going to lose all control over
Of recycling.
and what they do. So they're adding some materials into the recycling program like styrofoam glass and plastic film. But they're not going to be doing that by collecting it in your curbside carts. They're gonna have some kind of, probably collection depot where that stuff goes, because you can't mix that into the single stream recycling, you can't make glass in there. But those single depots, they have to be manned, like that were locked up, like you have to have some supervision on them. You can't just stick one in the superstore parking lot and forget about it, because you're gonna have deer carcass, you're gonna have bait, you're gonna have, you name it, you're gonna have it.
I heard Eastern Charlotte had deer carcass. I didn't hear that from you. I heard it was Eastern Charlotte. Is that true?
I don't know.
No, I heard it was Eastern Charlotte. I'm spreading that story.
The old Eastern Charlotte, St. George. Of course.
Guess the other news off.
To be honest with you, Brad, last year was Bayside, so.
Well, that's where my deer stand is.
That was your deer.
Yeah.
The more you-
Backfire.
the more that you say, the more I want to just wash my hands of it. Start adding all the extras to it.
That's my thing.
Like,
So is there, I only had a brief moment, but is there talk of like certain thresholds of contamination?
Yep.
And if you have more than that, the
Yep.
municipality might be on the hook on fines or whatever it is, or penalties?
Yep.
Cause all of a sudden this could end up costing us more, would be definitely the disadvantage, right?
But you're still responsible for that.
Okay, we still would be, there's no change. in
Just
that.
because they're contracting directly with your hauler, doesn't mean that you're not responsible for what ends up in the recycling. This is where you gotta be a little careful. It's a 3% contamination rate,
Which is nothing.
but they're gonna do that by doing audits. When he said it would be 18 months before we would even know.
And then you get a bill?
With
We fail every time,
there you go.
but it's not our fault.
3%? I would, you know what it is right now, roughly? So a lot higher than 3, it's good, but yeah, is it like 6 to 8%, something like that? It was better than we thought it was gonna be when I originally reported. I remember that. I wasn't at this table, but I
I'll put it
remember.
to you this way, it's worse now than what it was.
Makes sense. Not surprised. People
After
get
COVID.
complacent and you get away with it and
You just said it, yeah.
So there's gonna be some, how that gets policed
Yeah.
is like, you've got to they've got to have some pretty significant contracts with the collectors on qualities and things like that, and some significant checks, and it's
Without knowing how much new recycling materials are going to be arriving, there's no way to determine whether or not the staff that you have now is going to be able to handle the volume,
it'd be the
which
same.
may be coming in. So it could be that you're going to need more people, or you could do it with the people that you have, right? Okay.
Right.
But that when we look at costs, and until you know how much you're getting, you don't know whether 2 people or 3 people, whatever it is we have there now, can handle the volume that's going to be arriving.
In theory, it shouldn't be any different. Because the glass isn't gonna come to us, and the
Yeah.
styrofoam isn't gonna come, I don't know where they're taking that or what they're doing with it. And the film isn't gonna come to us.
Wait and see.
Well, excellent point.
But
You might think they're going somewhere else, but that's not a guarantee.
I just want to be sure and clear to what you and Brad were saying. So depending on who, they could get Jimmy to contract it out or whatever, and Jimmy could pick up anything he wants on the side, and then it's coming back to the municipality for whatever Jimmy picks up.
Yeah, I got a big problem with that, because you gotta trust that truck.
That's what I mean. If you've got nothing in place.
We already had that happen, we know it.
I'm Jimmy. And I have some type of financial incentive to call you out. I'm gonna call you out all day, and 3%,
No, that's what I mean.
3%, we're gonna fail that almost every time.
That's a lot of money.
Unless you don't end up getting paid as because you're the contractor, because you're not meeting the 3%. So the other thing that's gonna happen is,
different contract.
So I'll start tagging it almost, they'll have to, but yeah, they don't have time.
No,
to-
not like, isn't that what they do in St. John?
Nova Scotia they did, yeah, they have clear bags and it just, and they end up,
light stickers.
We
yeah.
get that all the
and
time.
you know where that was, the woods behind the neighborhoods is where that is going eventually.
So the problem with this is that if you get somebody that's overzealous because he knows he's gonna not get paid for collecting that recycling if it's contaminated, And he starts rejecting half the guys on your street.
Mhm.
And then then you're gonna get the phone calls.
Or they're just,
How come they didn't pick up my recycling?
they just won't put it up there anymore.
And so
And then
that's,
just tell you, you have to take the weight and then we're screwed. We're screwed
And
either
then
way.
end up going out in the ditch or in the backyard or in somebody, and that's what happens in St. John, that some of those places are just sketchy now, it's everything's thrown everywhere.
Have a chat with your CAOs. Have a look at the contract. And then before you sign anything, come on back, we'll chat again.
Yeah.
That's what I talked to him about, is I said that hopefully this comes up at RSC, which I'm glad you did, is because this is another thing that we should be united on too. Like there's no disadvantage to going every which way on this one. I can't see it anyway.
No, and I think it's kind of going that way even without us saying what we're saying, because we've already met. And so I'm comfortable with Jeff sitting to you and getting that straightened out. But what I would like to have, and I'll ask Jeff the same question, is I'd like to have someone lay it out like in writing, pros and cons of not doing it and pros and cons of doing it. And then look at it and say, okay, and with everything, anything that could happen, all that right there. So,
I know Mike Young is of the opinion that it's yours, you do it kind of thing, but you're gonna lose some control here, and there's no magic. I don't think it's a magic wand, like, so.
I don't know, I just got bigger issues to worry about than that.
And we might want, because it's the same contract, we might want legal advice on the actual what's written there. Because it's a pretty.
All the other RSCs are facing the same contract.
Only half of the province, the other half is gonna get this later, we're on a yearly.
Okay.
And we're first? Yeah. Well, let someone else be first and see how good it goes first.
Are we prepared, at what point do we go seek legal advice on?
I can take the contract now, I can get it. If you want me to do it as a group, like if you don't want to do it, because they're your contracts, right? This isn't a contract with the RSC, but if you want me to do that on your behalf, I can do that, but it'll be with the one opinion. You might each want your own counsel. That's up to you.
Did you talk about that today?
Hmm?
Did you talk about that today?
Slightly, we touched on it, but I mean, this is,
I'm like Brad, I think we need to all be in this together, though, like, we gotta come up with one decision and stick with it, so as far as I'm concerned, I don't know who was Ken on the call with you guys today, you know? He probably was with Amanda, I hope, anyway.
Amanda was there, so. Yeah.
Anyway, I feel like myself, I just seen you done it for all of us, but I'm just one group, so.
So I'm like Alan is, like, I'd like to see the pros and the cons, just because I see some good, but I see a lot, and then we're going that way with the 3% and the different. St. John's in a mess, like you can go in there and it's, and I meet with that mayor in 2 weeks, and like, they think it's not bad, but the citizens just have no use for it at all. The whole tagging, because there's, like you said, there's whole blocks that are getting tagged with everything, and then people, depending on who they are just saying, I'll just throw it on my truck and take it out when I'm dump it off. And it's not a good thing either.
What I'm trying to do is make this not me telling you my decision.
Yeah.
Trying to make sure that we have it.
But we certainly like taking advice.
Yeah, but I'm trying to look at the objectives on both sides, and
So I like what you said, but I don't know what good it would do about to get our legal representation each and then come back here first, but well, like I can bring that here. I'm looking at, you know, that
Yeah,
legal.
no,
talks about.
I'm thinking if Hollis is gonna take it on, we don't need to do that. We'll have Hollis give us the interpretation of it.
Mhm.
And then, but I like your ideas of the pros and cons, if the lawyer could give us a few pros and cons on that, that would be good too.
If we take it back, we're gonna have 7 probably different legal.
That would be my fear.
Is there a problem?
Yeah, that's gonna cost, yeah.
Has any of the problems across Canada been through what we're talking about?
BC.
So maybe, okay, where can I look that up?
To listen to the guys from Circular Materials, you know, it's all roses in BC, it's all great, but that's not actually the case. So Yeah, British Columbia is, and that, these were the guys actually that implemented in British Columbia.
Bonnie's got her hand up there.
The only thing I was gonna say is I think it makes sense for you guys if you do a joint legal opinion. Obviously, our situation is different than the other municipalities, but I do think it would be advantageous to hear what the pros and cons are, what you guys are gonna do, because we have a whole other path that we're gonna have to figure out over here, so.
So Bonnie, we did talk about Graham and Ann. Chris was here, well,
Yeah.
virtually today too, and so their solution actually isn't bad for you, and that would be to put some kind of a collection bin or something within your transfer station because it's manned and because it's locked at night. And that was kind of their solution because you don't have curbside.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to talk to Chris since he was on the meeting, but yeah, I think that makes sense. It's a space issue for us, but I do think the pros and cons of starting now versus starting later, that makes sense to me as well, but I kind of assumed that's where we'd end up. It's just, for us, once we have it collected at the transfer station, it's incentivizing people to come and pick it up is sometimes one of our biggest barriers to getting things moved.
But that wouldn't be your problem.
Until the bin is overflowing, which is what we have happen with other things that we collect, and then it becomes our problem. But yeah, in theory, it's not our problem.
In theory, it's not your problem.
Right.
That's the route we're probably going to, so it might be easier for me back down the road. I still would like, I'm still, I just think you've done it. And got their opinion. We all voted collectively on it. I really do think that would be the best way.
All right, I will do that. I will get the legal opinion on the particular contract and bring it back to you guys.
Danny has a question.
Not on that, I go good. for
Oh, okay.
That was for the regional transportation.
I'll go through the other stuff we've got here. So I was at the YSG annual nominaries meeting. St. John Airport, they are looking for a representative from our area. In fact, the chair is going to send me, he's supposed to send me a letter momentarily, but I asked the admin for, it's in here, qualifications, kind of what they're looking for. I literally got this board this afternoon. Yeah, so if there's a paper like this, and I could you kind of the qualifications of what they're looking for a board member for St. John Airport. Yeah, I think it'd be good if we could find the right person.
What's the timeline?
They didn't really give me one. I think they want somebody there before the fall.
Oh, okay, sorry. I would shoot this at our council and then they can kind of.
Oh, you can't be a counselor.
No, but they can maybe have feedback. If we're in the
Oh, okay.
community.
Yeah.
Just where we're so new, we don't have, like, you guys all know people, or we don't have people.
I mean, it could be somebody from, I don't know, Plymouth Road. Would be a good one, or I don't know.
How many are we looking for? Or just
Just
one per region?
One from the region, but they are short two right now. So
Do you want someone that is an airplane type person, or does have to have anything to do with that at all? It's more business.
nobody on their board is really like they have people from like RBC and Irving and a lot of private businesses, and there's
Almost got
Yeah, a logistical person might be just as good, right?
Yeah, that's
Different
right.
skill sets, right?
Yeah, because it's not really about planning, it's about,
yeah.
There's advantages.
But
to that,
balance
too.
yeah.
Yep, so that a couple other things I had here, beginning stages of planning a possible expo for the fall for the RSC. I've spoken to you all about this previously, but that would be showcasing all of our services along with our stakeholders and partners at the same time. And intent is to promote to the public all the stuff, because nobody has a good picture of all of the things that we do. I have a hard time wrapping my head around it sometimes. So, if we can kind of put that in place and show people all of the areas that we touch as a service commission, I think it would just be a lot of goodwill and it would be a free thing.
Did you want a motion for us to, for you to go ahead and do that, or you've been talking about, it? Do you need us to behind you to do it, or?
I might, but I don't need one right yet.
Okay, this one.
The expo, is that like, would it be booths, like say each community could have a booth, like say St. Andrews, Fundy Shores, or?
Well, it could be
For
communities, but I was
promotion or-
thinking actually our services, so I'll
Yeah.
have like a, let's say I have economic development and we have an information booth there, but next to economic development, we have Future St. Stephen there as well. And we have possibly Synergy, and we have any other stakeholders and partners we have there. And then we have the community development. Along with community development, we'd have Horizon Health, the community development, we'd have regional resiliency, that kind of stuff. And then we would have our tourism area, and then any other stakeholders and partners and possible tour operators there. Recreation, kind of the same thing. But we also would have a planning department, and so we would have people that answer questions about building and what are the requirements and that kind of stuff. And we'd have our solid waste. If I could get it, I would get, there's a mobile hazardous waste unit we can get from Terrapure. So you can bring your hazardous waste there. That day, I think it's expensive, but I have to check on that. And then I would just have just some family friendly activities, like we might have a bouncy house or a band or whatever, things like that. I think are free of charge to people. But I also don't want to do this at the same time as any other events in the region, right? Or here in conjunction with the events we talked about when they're in Eastern Charlotte. So yeah, so and the only other thing I have on my report is we've had a busy fire season this year. We get small fires all the time. We have a water truck on, we're well experienced with it. We have fire hydrants at a fairly high PSI all the way around the site. We have a water cannon tower if we need it. I haven't seen it out yet, but it's there. We have various pumps. But sometimes these fires do get larger and we have to call the fire departments. Usually Lawrence Station and then Rolling Dam, and then there's usually the rural district fire departments to show up. But when they show up, the coverage is by whoever's next, right? So I wanted to publicly, here in a public forum, give a sincere thanks and appreciation for all the fire departments and everything that they do in the region, because they respond quick. Now we employ the entire Lawrence Station Fire Department, I think, but so that helps. But there's still a lot that goes on behind the scenes that in volunteer and maintaining everything. But I just wanted to give a public thank you to fire departments in the whole region for everything they do. We've certainly had our share of that service this year. And that is my report, Mr. Chair.
Any other questions on the report?
Yeah, the transportation. Was that it said early June? Is that the first meeting for public transport for the RSC? I was on that committee. Okay, I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss anything. I'm on the committee and we're just wondering. So that'll be the first. Starting in June, okay.
I'd like to just make a statement, not a question, but the other day I emailed Ken and asked him if I could, because nobody was representing us on the community development board, none of my councilors want to do it or whatever. And Raymond asked me to call him the next day, I think he must spend 2 hours with me explaining it all. I think he's a good man and I appreciate it. That's all I want to say. He done a good job over my head, some of it, but he's good at what he does.
We're lucky to have them.
First thing you think, how long you got? You know what I mean? So I knew it was gonna be fun.
Good to hear. Thanks.
Now he does, I think he's doing a good job. No, they all are, but I just. To be able to take to call somebody the next day, you know what I mean, and have a couple, and I thought that was pretty good.
I like to echo Hall's statement on the fire departments, because I realize 3 fire departments over my way, and they're all, I mean, these guys are doing an excellent job, and they're all volunteers, and night or day, they're always there. And, it's a lot more, they respond a lot faster than our police departments.
Sometimes we are the police department.
But it can't hold on.
You do a lot of fire.
And I actually
They
went
asked you if the
to
person's been drinking.
our Musquash Fire had determined that hit fire last week in our subdivision on the hottest, that whole street that was red zoned in the province. And yeah, and it could have went bad really, really, really fast. Like there was like, the houses are so close together in that subdivision. Unfortunately, you know, she lost everything that she had. But yeah, it could have went really bad. And I know there was a lot on our social media up there that really praised our fire department for the work they did. Because, and again, these girls and guys are all volunteer, right? And they do I always say they probably do more work and training than some of the city guys, because they put a lot of heart and soul into it. So you're right, they, you know, whether it's Elmsville, Rolling Dam, everywhere's in our district deserves a lot of praise for what they did.
Absolutely.
I know home, we even get called to a lot of you guys' calls, just to keep our call volume up. You know what I mean? 'Cause we don't have a lot of calls, and actually, I mean, there's times that probably is a big help, you guys, right?
Yeah, our fire departments are merging to under one title now, the Eastern Charlotte Fire and Rescue. So we know our Fundy Bay or Black Harbor or St. George, it's gonna be a one name.
Yeah, well, and we're starting the talks with our guys now, but yeah, because Penfield, we're kind of sharing that a little bit too, so.
Okay. Monthly financial report.
I've included them in the package here. There's the summary income statement is probably the other one. Doesn't really give a good picture, but it's important to know what the balance sheet is. But the summary income statement is probably the one that makes the most sense. Basically, you can see percentage of annual budget. We should be, if everything was equal, if all of our expenses were exactly the same every month and all of our income was exactly the same every month, we'd be at 33.3%. That'd be our target. But of course, some stuff is front-end loaded. You know, so we made a large purchase, like we bought a rock truck. So that's going to put up you know, but that was our one big purchase this year. But otherwise, we are on track. I've seen nothing in here cause for concern. Everything appears to be exactly where it should be at this point. I'm happy to answer any questions about it.
Everyone good? Okay, I don't have anything else on committee and staff reports.
Right. I'm sorry. I had one thing that was, it was an omission. Should have been in, and I apologize, Mr. Chair. But I am getting a proposal. Is anybody or everybody here familiar with ISO 9001, 14001?
Yes.
You must be, right? So I'm getting a proposal on that. In a previous life, 20 years ago, I was an ISO auditor myself. 9001, 14001. But I'm getting a proposal from ISO Atlantic on what it would take to become certified, or even if we didn't become certified, adopt the program. And the reasoning behind this is I thought about it, you know, when I first started, but we didn't need to be certified. You know, it's not a necessary thing. However, with the growth of the commission, and when we start talking about succession planning and transfer of knowledge and capturing all of the procedures and things like that, and you know, with the average age of senior management at the landfill and the solid waste facility, not so much in this building, but the other one. So there are those concerns, but there's also, once you have a well-functioning ISO system in place, then it's a lot more automatic to manage. So my concept there was, if it was 9,001, 14,001 would be an environmental control one. And I would also probably add 9,001 to our building inspection process. So that we can, it's a very complicated process. And the new standard, the 2015 standard, is a lot less about manufacturing like it used to be and more about service industry. But if we can capture that stuff, so if we were to become certified, and I know it's not cheap, but if we are certified, then we are held to the standard of doing an internal audit every year and an external audit every year. Making sure that everything is on track. And that means that we would have a system in place that would survive me, survive this board, survive and you know, it helps with succession planning. There's a lot of reasons why. And if you've been involved with ISO before, you know what I'm talking about. So anyway, I am receiving that proposal. I, you know, no decisions have been made here, but I just want to let you know that's happening.
That'll put a lot on your plate.
But there'd be a consultant to do it. The other part of that is, once I had a proposal, then I would go after RDC for funding it or somebody like that. Because it's not going to be cheap to do. So I just want to get better.
And that would come, yeah, that would come back to us anyway before for funding or for.
Yeah.
Any decision making. Okay, I'm just gonna go around the table and make sure there's nothing that we've missed. Bonnie, do you have anything? Okay, Darren, do you have any comments?
No, I'm good, Mr. Chair.
Hey, Sue?
No, all good, thank you.
Okay. Al?
I'm good.
Okay, Herbie? Danny? That's good. John?
I'm good. Tim.
Any last comment?
The last comment is on the date and time of the next regular meeting. The normal date, the fourth Thursday, would be June 22nd. I would ask that we extend that by a week to June 29th.
I have a motion that we change our next meeting to June 29th, 6 p.m.
Second.
Second. Okay, all those in favor? Signify by saying aye.
Accept the meeting.
The
Fine.
board meeting.
29.
So that moves the working meeting to when?
I did move the working meeting.
Because there's already a committee meeting planned for the Thursday, the 8th. Recreation Committee has a meeting lined up for that night.
She's changing that.
Is she?
Okay, I just wondered one of them would have to change. Yeah. Okay.
We'll be back around the 8th.
That was gonna be 4 o'clock in the afternoon, though, wasn't it?
No, 6:30.
Oh, okay.
It's a Zoom meeting.
Must be something else.
There was another one. Oh, no, there was another one.
One of the days we managed, right?
I think you're thinking of the committee of the whole, right?
Yes, the Committee of the Whole.
That's going to change that conflict.
Okay, yep.
I may or may not make that June 29th. That's been a pretty good way. I've been to a lot of them.
Yeah.
That may be.
You're
like,
setting-
a lot of people, we don't get our
You're setting
attention.
records.
I know.
Any more whales sighted?
We're gonna community development on the post the 8th.
So the 8th, we're back here for community of the whole. Correct?
Maybe, hold on. All right, good.
One of the counselors asked, the strategic planning one that's in our deal, that be, you submit that under your constant record at the strategic planning meetings?
Yeah.
Oh, you can, I didn't know.
You going to that?
Yeah, I'll let them know.
One of the.
It's kind of like a committee meeting, that's what it is. Yeah.
That is 12 noon. Okay, so we get lunch and then come over here, have supper. Or still on camera.
It's a lot for the meeting.
I'll find your meal quiet, darn right. I got two weeks of graduation to go on there. I got a lot of schools on my way.
Take a look at the recycling, because that whole week, the mayor go and help see the process. So it comes in. So the truck comes in, they dump it, and then someone sorts through it. You upload it, move it on, or to, where does it usually go first? Woodstock, and then they go through it, Woodstock, and then depending on what it is. So, A lot of the plastics though, even though there's one number we can't, a lot of the plastics don't actually get recycled, do they? There's very limited what you can do with a lot of them.
Well, a lot of the plastics, some of them go to, Solino, makes a pipe out of some of the recycled. Some of it goes to, can't remember the name of the company. It's an installation company in Nova Scotia. So a lot of it goes there to the installation. Yeah, that, we don't dump that stuff.
Okay.
Originally, the numbers 3 and 6 were not to be recycled. That still continues? Or is that changed? That was with the Quebec organization, so I wondered if it changed.
No, we didn't change the. we
No.
didn't change the plan.
So still 3 and 6 shouldn't be put in recycle.
That's right.
Okay.
Can I
Charlotte.
I know we're probably done on this.
Yeah, you-
Conversation. Could I have someone move that we adjourn? Okay. Now you guys can keep talking.